what they can afford. So obviously in 1980, when inflation was really high at 12.18%, it obviously jumped the payment up like crazy, meaning it was easier. If you held your wealth in things other than cash, those increased in value a lot more than the cash did. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Generation H! Today, we have a sweet topic, guys.
Sweet.
Very sweet topic. It could look a little confusing on the board, but trust me, when you look at this, you'll be amazed. So this is basically going to tell you whether housing is cheap or expensive compared to 1970, 80, 90, based on different things other than cash. So basically everyone knows that as inflation goes up, house prices go up and everything like that. So as you can see from 2020, the median house price went from $329 to $428. But that's only if you were buying it cash. But let's compare all these numbers if you weren't buying it cash, if you held your cash elsewhere, let's say in 1970. So basically what this shows, in 1970, a $22,000 house at a 7.29% interest rate, the payment will be $154.79. S&P price at that time was only $93. So if you held your wealth instead of in cash, you bought S&P shares in 1970, the price of a house is actually went from 1.66 shares per payment in 1970 to 0.61 shares per payment in 2022. So if you look at that metric, instead of using cash, housing got, I guess, a third cheaper. Did I explain that all right?
there's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I was going to say, I think there's a lot of moving variables in there, because I think you kind of want to go off of this one to where your cost to buy and using shares. So $93 a share would take 243 shares. Now you only need 110 shares because now it's 3,800.
Yeah, so that's a good point. But when people are buying houses, they don't usually look at the median. They don't usually look at the price. They look at the payment to get that house. So that's a great point. So obviously, if you're buying all cash, which most people don't do anyway, you'd be looking at the cost to buy the house using S&P shares.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
so this is more of your monthly payment in shares.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, this to buy a house.
Yeah.
To make your payments.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so as you can see, the interest rates in 1980, because interest rates have a huge effect on whether people are buying houses or on their payment and what they can afford. So obviously in 1980, when inflation was really high at 12.18%, it obviously jumped the payment up like crazy, meaning it was easier. If you held your wealth in things other than cash, those increased in value a lot more than the cash did, of course.
Gotcha.
And that's why the houses jumped 3x in that 10-year period. Okay, so for that, S&P price in 1970, 1980, 1990. So as you can see, in every year except 2020, it was cheaper. And this is with the S&P after the 20% downfall. This is as of May 20th. So as of May 20th, S&P still is down 20%. So it's 3,894 down from like 4,200. So that's with the downfall. And even with that, it's still cheaper than all the prior years except 2020, which is when the interest rates were really low anyway. This is at a 5.3% interest rate, which is the 30-year mortgage at this time right now. In 2020, January 1st, it was 3.54%. In 2010, it was 4.17%, and so on. So if you held your wealth in the S&P 500, it was cheaper to buy a house than any of these years. But let's try gold. So in gold in 1970, it was $35.13 an ounce. But we could throw that year out because it was pegged to the dollar, so it didn't really have much fluctuation. The government was controlling the price of gold. So anything, because at 1972, Nixon took us off the gold standard. So from here on out is probably what you want to look at. But even if you look at the price of gold, you can see in 1980, it took 1.19 ounces of gold to make the $664 payment because gold was at $559. Now it's 1.29, so priced in gold, it's still not expensive compared to 1990 and 2000. It is a little more pricier than 2020 and 2010 and 1980, but the point is, it's still not super expensive. As everyone is saying, the price of a house is actually still on par with the commodities that people are buying.
Not to make a controversial statement or anything.
Yeah. So would you say that it was almost worth buying gold at this price because now your money has tripled, just like buying a house? Then you're, I mean, if you bought a house,
Yeah.
it's times 10 almost.
Yeah.
Compared to
Well, I think it puts it in perspective. So obviously, you're buying S&P at $3,894 today, but in 20 years, that is probably going to be around $7,000. So you got to kind of look at it that way, how you're holding your cash. Now, if you held cash, you know, a $428,000 house, if you had that in cash, it'd be worth $428,000. But the price of houses will probably go up to maybe $600,000 for the median price in 20 years. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe $700,000. So basically, storing your wealth in different types of commodities is more beneficial for you in the long term rather than keeping it cash, if that makes sense. So now we'll look at Bitcoin, which wasn't around prior to 2010, so we couldn't do anything. This is just a fun one. So if you bought Bitcoin in 2010, it would take 2.5 million Bitcoin to buy the median price house. In 2022, it takes 14 Bitcoin. So priced in Bitcoin, it's actually like 1 million times cheaper to buy a house.
So if you can get a time traveling machine, go back to 2010,
and buy Bitcoin.
buy Bitcoin, and then buy a few houses.
And then last one is one everybody uses, gallons of gas. You can see in 1970 it was 36 cents and so on. And as you can see, it's almost the same price as in 2020, the house prices, but it's cheaper than in 2000, cheaper than in 1990, and actually cheaper than 1980. So if you bought a bunch of barrels of gas and held them in a storage unit from 1980, then resold them and traded for a house, it'll be cheaper.
Nice.
So the point is, if you have a time machine, buy gas in the 70s.
No, you buy gas in the 90s.
Sorry, buy gas in the 90s, and then buy gold in the 2000s, buy S&P in the 70s, and buy a house anytime, not today, but yesterday. It's always been cheaper to buy a house before.
Now,
No,
that's what I was
super
gonna say.
interesting.
In y'all's opinion, we have double, triple the median house
Yeah.
pretty much year over year. Where does this number go in 2030?
Dude, this is only 2 years.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy?
It's only $100,000 difference in 2 years. And then you got 100,000 in a 10-year period, then 60, 70,000 in a 10, and
Yeah, well, this is
So
after
far.
the
I
2009
think the
crash.
big one
This
is-
would have been 280 if it was in
yeah,
2000.
this is the big one right here. You're double the
Yeah.
home price, in 80 to 90.
Well, you're triple right here, 70 to 80.
And that's what I'm saying.
You're
Triple.
triple, and the interest rate is 12.18%.
Triple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though the interest rate dropped, it's still doubled.
Still doubled. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Still
You know what I
doubled
mean? Like
from
it-
here to
yeah,
here.
it went up 5%, still went up, and then it doubled in price, and
Went
the
down
interest
a
rate
couple
went down.
percent.
Yeah.
So so where are we gonna be in 2030?
That's what I'm saying.
I
I
mean-
think the interest rates in 2030 are going to be probably somewhere around here, 4
The
to
trajectory
7%.
is just like this.
Yeah, I think interest probably
Right?
stays in the 4 to 7%. Is my opinion,
Yeah, I think so.
because I don't think it's going to ever go back up to this, and I don't think it's ever going to go back down to this. Yeah, I
I
highly
could
doubt
see
it.
it go back down to that in the future, but
Yeah,
But it's only
it would take.
temporary.
Yeah, it would be only temporary.
yeah. So I'm gonna go start hoarding some gas because if this is 421 now, who knows what
Just
it's gonna
go,
be in 10
go buy
years.
Beanie Babies, because Beanie Babies.
Beanie Babies actually didn't see that much growth. It was Pokemon.
Pokemon cards. So Pokemon cards going forward.
From 2000 to
Yeah. So basically, from 1970 to 2022, we saw what a 13 times the price it costs for a house. But then the S&P, it's about 38 times the price, the
Yeah.
S&P price, which is why it makes it more affordable if you held your shares in
50
something.
hold your
times.
shares,
Gold,
for 50
50
years.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Bitcoin,
50, you got one time per year,
2.5
50
million
years.
times.
Yeah, no, but all right. So what do you say then for the people that will argue that income was very different?
very
back in the
different.
70s, my
Yes.
dad could only work, and my mom could
This
stay
payment
home,
was
and it was like.
tremendously
so, like,
expensive.
So what would you say to that, right? Because nowadays in 2022, you have dual incomes, you have people that have gig jobs, and
Yep.
so like people's income, like they need to earn more in order to afford those homes. Is that just because we become more consumers and more of a like
Yeah.
global economy, so we're buying everything? And we're more consumers than we were back then.
Yeah,
I
I
would,
agree.
I would argue, right?
Yeah, so you're saying,
Back then, you didn't have it. You weren't a consumer. You basically lived and didn't buy but groceries, and that was it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you bought
Food,
groceries from your
grocery.
local place, and
Yeah, from
yeah,
your
you
local
bought
produce center,
dishes once. You probably gifted to them when you got married, and you
Yep.
probably held those.
and you bought
for 20
clothes
years.
every probably
Yeah.
season versus us buying clothes every couple of weeks, months,
Yeah.
however. Yeah, they bought one set of winter clothes and one set of summer clothes, and
Yeah.
we just mixed them.
Yeah. I mean, I remember having conversations with my parents, not back then, but like in the 80s.
80s, 90s, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like, yeah, you bought 2 pairs of shoes, and it
Yeah.
was like your winter set, and you got and
And
then
that was
6
it.
months later, you got another set of shoes, and that was really it.
Yeah.
And that just kept cycling over and over
Yeah.
again. So what would you say about that then? Because like you did the research with income.
so you're
Yeah.
saying with people spending more and stuff like that, spending more on more shoes
Yeah.
and stuff, does that affect
What
it?
was
Yeah.
what was the average income for 70,
Oh,
80,
I do
90?
have those, but also you got to take into consideration the inflation pay, which I didn't even actually put. I should have put the inflation difference on the price of the house as well,
Oh
on
yeah.
top of the actual nominal
Yeah,
dollars.
yeah.
Because
Because our
these-
inflation is crazy big now
Yeah.
compared to, even though I bet you 70s, 80s inflation was
Yeah.
pretty high.
Yeah,
Because
no,
you're going
yeah,
through
it
that
was.
weird 70, yeah.
But I'm saying $428,000 in 1970 is probably around like $80,000.
So
So
way
70s
higher than the
dollars.
median.
Yeah,
way higher than the median.
Yeah.
So then
Okay.
so then houses are more expensive now than
if
they
you
were
hold
back
your
then.
value in cash,
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
No, but if you're talking about inflation, if so in 2022,
Yeah.
in the 1970s dollar is worth $80,000, then houses are a lot more expensive.
yeah, they're
Correct.
about 4 times as expensive, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But
median
that's
was.
if you hold your value in cash. If you held your value in the S&P 500, it would be a lot
Then
cheaper.
it's cheaper.
Which is the whole point of this. If you hold your value in cash, obviously you're gonna be paying more, even with inflation. Real estate outdid inflation a little bit throughout the years, but the point of this is if you hold your value in other things besides
Yeah.
cash.
Then it makes more sense.
Then
Yeah.
you could outperform cash
Exactly.
in every situation,
Yeah.
including barrels of gas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, in 2020 it was 2.6 a gallon, and then 2022 4.21.
Which is crazy. I mean, that's a huge jump, and that's probably due to a lot of different changes. I mean,
Yeah.
inflation has something to do with it. Us switching, this goes for, I mean,
Yeah. Well, Ukraine was the big one.
the war
Yeah.
in Ukraine and all that had a lot of effect to double this number.
Yeah.
Because up until then, it hadn't really doubled other than from the 2000s to 2010.
Yeah. So basically, everything is almost cheaper. It was cheaper in 2020, except if you held your value in gallons of gas.
Gas, yep.
And you could do this with any type of commodity, right? Pounds of rice, coffee, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Silver,
usually,
gold.
yeah, it comes out to actually the payments you make are actually pretty standard with what inflation is increasing those goods with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I just kind of go back to like the argument about how millennials just can't afford it because they're not getting paid as much, and like
Yeah, so
that argument, right?
It's in that same argument.
Like how do
What
you
is
debunk
the
that?
what
Or-
is
or
the
what's
average?
truth,
What are the
as you call it?
average income for the?
So yeah, the
basic
median
year?
income have not even close to kept up
with this, yeah.
with
the prices of
of houses. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I feel like everything, the cost of goods, gas, the whole 9 yards, income hasn't caught up with that inflation yet. Because these prices are going up a lot faster than your income's going up. Because let's say 90% of people are 3% per year. I know when I was working a 9 to 5, they gave me a 3% raise every single year,
Yeah, so you don't
year
do that.
over year.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people don't stick around with their jobs.
They don't stick
They're
around with your
lateral,
job
right?
because
Like they'll jump ship but then go up. They're asking for promotions. They're asking for more pay,
Exactly.
but they just continue to jump. That's why the average person staying at their job for like 2.2 or 2.3 years. Like
Exactly.
they move around pretty quickly,
But you
which
have
is common practice. It absolutely.
You have to.
And
And a
if you don't,
3% raise
you're staying
per
at the
year,
3%.
you're not even making up for
You're
this
Not. You're not.
Yeah.
at a 3% per
You're
year.
not. Yeah.
Not even close. Yeah, inflation usually
Yeah.
outpaces the median
I was gonna
income.
say we're sitting at 8% inflation right now. Your 3%
8%.
increase.
8%.
8% is a
Yeah,
very
the reported
low,
number.
deflated number.
Sure.
So yeah.
It's transitory, guys.
No
It's
kidding. And that's
transitory.
8% just on one thing. That doesn't include gas and everything
Yeah,
else. That's
yeah,
a
yeah.
13-14% inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're getting a 3% raise. You're
Yeah.
not even barely covering yourself.
Now, what would you say about people that are looking to buy? How it's an expensive market now. We're going to
Yep.
be overpaying. Interest rates are high, like that kind of stuff. Because obviously we're seeing the trajectory, right? I understand that you're trying to like point out and compare how
Other items.
other commodities,
Yeah,
right? And how,
Right.
but like, would you then put money in real estate down, or would you diversify
and go
and be
full
more
base.
aggressive in other places then?
So that depends on every person's situation and how they want to diversify. So what I think is probably going to happen is eventually the interest rates are going to come down, and maybe the housing prices will stagnate for the next few years. But this payment will come down. I think
Okay.
maybe match a little more like in the 1800s, making it a little bit more affordable for the average person. But
Because we already showed you in the last video, this changing 1% is
Yeah.
tremendous on this number.
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say if you're not buying real estate, but some people want a place to live. Some people just want to get into it. You can leverage real estate, which is the biggest upside. So if you're leveraging real estate, I think it's okay to buy at these prices. But if you're buying it all cash, it'd probably be a better bet to put it in other commodities such as gold, S&P 500, Bitcoin, but that's speculative. Or go to the gas station, get a bunch of barrels of gas.
And what you mean by buying, is going out and buying the entire house for $428,000.
Yes.
Most people aren't going to do that, right? So they're going to do the 3.5s, they're going to do the 5s, they're going to do the 10, 20%, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, that being the case, you really have to start to run your numbers to see what your cash on cash is,
Yes.
right? Your ROI, your return on investment. And
Yeah.
is it really going to pan out for you, right?
Yep.
I mean, this is the safer, obviously, like it continues to go up. Is it going to have a dip? Possibly.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It most likely is, but then it's going to continue to go upward. Are we
Yeah.
building houses like we're supposed to? No.
No.
Like,
Are we already behind?
yes. Do we have a huge wave of millennials that are coming in and they're going to want to own their own houses? Sure.
Yep.
Are hedge funds buying a bunch of houses and they're not going to resell them because they're just going to start to keep them in house?
Yep.
Probably. Right? So,
I mean,
like,
you're already seeing
a
it.
lot of houses are going to be taken off the market. So, in my opinion, I think that this is always going to continue to go up.
Yes.
If anything, it's
long term. Well, over a period. of
Over a
long
period
term.
of
Yeah.
long term. Yeah.
Between 2020 and 2020 and
And
2030,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's going to go up.
Yeah.
Right?
Like-
So
It
you're
just
going to
has
have to
to.
live somewhere,
Yeah.
right? For the next 8 years, 5 years, however long. So,
Yep.
so buy something that's in your comfort zone, price wise. I would absolutely, even though I don't do it that much or at all.
Yeah. Still
I would
invest in
invest.
these.
I would invest and diversify because
Yep.
it all fluctuates. So I was joking about it earlier. Like, there's different things that you should buy in different centuries, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong if you're investing in all of it all the time and you're doing cost dollar average,
Agreed.
right? If you're just continuing to buy in, S&P is going to have highs and then it's going to have lows and then it's going to have high again.
And right now it's pretty low, guys.
Yeah. And it's like everything. If you
Yeah.
it depends on when you need to sell. That's what it all comes down to.
It does.
If you need to retire in 2020, then you should have been a lot more conservative in the early 2000s, 2010s,
Yeah.
because you knew you were getting to that point.
And to that point, that's exactly what 401ks do.
Yes.
So, like, 401ks have buckets, right?
Yep.
Oh, Daryl, you're 30. We're gonna put you in this bucket. Oh, you're 25, but we're gonna put you in this bucket.
Yes.
And they'll like group you either whether it's 5 years or 10-year like buckets.
Yeah.
And depending on your age group, they'll either be more aggressive
Or super
or they'll
conservative.
they'll start to be a lot more conservative in like the businesses that they invest in and what your groups are, right? Like your
Exactly.
portfolios are. So like do the same thing with your own personal investments, right? Like this is a very safe bet. So sure, you could do this as you're older, but you're not going to really see that uptick as much.
Exactly.
But you're going to need to live somewhere, so just buy a house, right? So for S&P, for gold, for any other Bitcoin, the younger you are, the more aggressive you are. For me,
Correct.
I mean, we have these conversations all the time because I'm older and because I have kids and other kinds of things.
Same.
Like I tend to be a bit more conservative than say you. As you
Right.
get older, you'll start to be more conservative.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
No, you will be because
Yeah.
you'll feel the pressure
Yeah.
and you'll have the kids at home and you won't want to lose it all because if you lose it all, not only are you affected, but now they're affected.
Yeah.
For me and Carlos, we can't do that because I don't want my kids to go through a deep,
Yeah.
recession
Yeah.
or anything where I'm financially not as well off.
I mean, back 10 years ago, I could eat rice and beans and rice, right?
10 years ago, we were eating ramen noodles. Who cares?
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
what it is.
I used to call it Kroger cancer. Like, I'd eat everything store brand. It was
Yes.
Kroger, everything. So I was like, I'm gonna get Kroger cancer because I'm just trying to save up money, right?
Save it. Yep.
So so as you evolve, as you get older, things will change for you. You'll start to invest differently.
Yeah.
But pause this, see the patterns.
Yeah.
I mean, get in.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Get in because things are going to continue to get more expensive as time goes on.
And I guarantee you, we're going to have this same exact video in 2050, and it's going to be completely the same trajectory. It's going to keep going up, and once you hit 2030, 2040, 2050, we will be at $600,000-$700,000 as your median home price by that time.
Yeah.
Just think about how much your mom or your dad put in for gas when you were a kid, and you'd look up because
And
your
you see
parents
the
just filled
99
up.
cent
Yeah.
logo on
How
there
much
to
was
go
it?
to King's Dominion.
I remember my mom putting in $15.
Yes. Full tank.
Full tank.
Yep.
And now I've paid 10 times that for
your
my
truck. Yeah.
So just get in because it's going to be more expensive.
And that was
later.
25
Period.
years ago.
Yeah.
You were 10 years
Yeah.
old 25 years
Yeah.
ago, and now here we are.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
That's early 90s, which was $1.15 a gallon,
Yeah.
which she had a 16-gallon tank.
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
bucks.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's the bottom line. I don't know what
So
else.
you can interpret it how you want.
Yeah.
Obviously, it is cheaper than people think. Even though the median price is $428,000. I mean, they see it's gone up 13x from 2022. But if you put it into perspective of payment and then what commodities actually buy that payment back every decade, however you interpret it, but it is a little cheaper in some instances.
It's
Yeah.
a little cheaper to buy a house
Now than it is in
has been in the
30.
past. So no complaining, millennials. Stop eating avocado. Stop
Yeah.
eating it.
All right, and make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Generation A!